He was burned alive by the very kingdom he saved. The hero who slayed the demon king tied to a stake in the city square while the crowd he protected cheered for his death. The king called him a threat. The priests called him a monster. And as the flames swallowed his body, the last thing the hero saw was his own party laughing behind the king. But the moment his eyes closed in fire, they opened again, 10 years in the past, inside the body of a weak 15-year-old slave boy. He now carried the memories of the strongest hero who ever lived. And this time he would not save the world. He would conquer it. Ray woke up screaming. His throat felt like it was still on fire. He clawed at his chest, expecting to feel his skin melting, but there was nothing. His skin was cold, untouched, smooth. His hands were small and thin, the hands of a child. He looked down at his body in horror. He was wearing rags. An iron collar was locked around his neck. His wrists were chained to a stone wall. Ray froze. This was not the hero's body. This was the body of a boy. A flood of memories crashed into his mind. He gripped his head and fell to his knees as the chain rattled. He saw 2 lifetimes at once. He saw the boy, a nameless slave sold to a noble family, beaten every day, starved, treated worse than a dog. And he saw the hero, the man he became, the man who climbed from nothing to slay the demon king and save the entire continent. He saw the betrayal. He saw the flames. He saw the king smiling as the crowd screamed for blood. The 2 lives collided inside one mind, and Ray understood. He had returned to the past. Ray's breathing slowed. He stared at his trembling hands, and a cold smile crept across his face. In his first life, this slave boy died young, beaten to death by his master for spilling wine, his body thrown into a ditch outside the city. Nobody remembered him, nobody cared. But Ray remembered everything now. He remembered every dungeon, every hidden treasure, every secret skill, every enemy that would one day rise. He had the memories of a man who took 30 years to reach the top. And now he was 15 again with the whole world ahead of him. He looked around the dark room. It was a cellar, damp and cold. He remembered this place. This was the basement of the Valmont estate, the cruel noble family that owned him. In a few hours, the young master would come down to beat him for fun. In his past life, the boy simply endured it again and again until one day the beating went too far. Ray's eyes narrowed. Not this time. He would never kneel again. He would never be a slave again. He would become the strongest being in this world, and he would burn down every person who wronged him. But there was a problem. Ray looked at his thin arms and weak body. His mind was that of a legendary hero, but his body was that of a starving child. He had no power, no mana, no strength. The skills he mastered in his past life required a body that could handle them. If he tried to use them now, his muscles would tear apart and his mana veins would burst. Ray clenched his jaw. He needed to grow stronger, slowly and carefully. He needed to rebuild this body from the ground up, and he needed to escape this estate first. Suddenly, a strange screen flickered to life in front of his eyes. Ray flinched. He never had anything like this in his past life. The screen glowed with soft blue light. System initializing, welcome returner, hidden class detected, class Demon King's successor. Unique skill Devour. Ray stared at the words in shock. Demon King's successor. He had killed the Demon King with his own hands. Why would he inherit his class, and what was this system? He had lived an entire life without one. Something about this second chance was different, something far more powerful. A new line appeared. Skill Devour. Consume the power of any being you defeat and make it your own. Ray's eyes widened. This was a god-tier skill. In his past life, he had to train for years to learn a single ability, but with this skill, he could simply take the power of anything he killed. Monsters, beasts, even other people. His weak body could grow at an impossible speed. Ray's lips curled into a dangerous grin. The system had given him the perfect weapon. Now he just needed something to devour. Footsteps echoed from the stairs above. Ray looked up. A door creaked open and light spilled into the cellar. A boy around 17 years old walked down the steps, smirking cruelly. It was Cedric Valmont, the young master of the estate. In his hand he carried a leather whip. In his past life, this boy beat Ray countless times, laughing the entire time. Ray remembered every strike. He remembered the pain. And now the predator had become the prey, though Cedric had no idea. Cedric stopped in front of Ray and sneered. He said, "Still alive, you filthy rat? My father wants you to clean the stables today, but first I think you need some motivation." He raised the whip and cracked it against the floor. In his past life, Ray would have curled up and begged. But this time, Ray simply stared at him with cold, empty eyes. Cedric paused. Something about that gaze unsettled him. The boy was usually terrified. Now he looked calm, too calm. Cedric frowned and raised the whip higher. He said, "What are you looking at, slave? Lower your eyes." Ray slowly rose to his feet, the chains pulling tight against his wrists. He looked Cedric dead in the eyes and said quietly, "You've beaten me for years. You enjoyed every second of it." Cedric blinked in surprise. The slave had never spoken back before. A flash of anger crossed his face. He swung the whip with full force, aiming for Ray's face, but Ray had fought the Demon King himself. Even in this weak body, his instincts were razor sharp. He tilted his head slightly, and the whip cracked against the stone wall behind him, missing completely. Cedric froze, stunned. Ray moved. With the chains still on his wrists, he lunged forward and wrapped the iron links around Cedric's neck. The young master gasped and dropped the whip, clawing at the chains. He was bigger and stronger, but Ray fought with the cold precision of a killer. He pulled the chain tighter and tighter. Cedric's face turned purple. He thrashed and kicked, but Ray held on with everything he had. Within seconds, the young master's body went limp and collapsed to the floor. Ray let go and stepped back, breathing heavily. He had done it. His first kill in this new life. The system screen flashed. Target defeated, Devour available. Do you wish to consume? Ray stared at the prompt. He knelt beside Cedric's body and whispered, yes. A black mist rose from the corpse and flowed into Ray's body. A surge of warmth spread through his veins. His muscles tightened. His mana veins, dry and empty before, began to fill with energy for the first time. The screen updated. Devour complete, strength increased, mana awakened, level 2 reached. Ray exhaled slowly. He could feel the difference already. He was no longer a powerless child, he was growing. Ray searched Cedric's body and found a small key. He unlocked the iron collar around his neck and the chains on his wrists. They fell to the floor with a heavy clang. For the first time in this life, Ray was free. He rubbed his raw wrists and looked down at the dead young master. A part of him wanted to stay and kill the entire Valmont family. They all deserved it, but Ray was not strong enough yet. The estate was full of trained guards and a knight captain who could cut him down in an instant. Ray forced himself to stay calm. Revenge would come later. For now, he needed to escape and grow. He climbed the cellar stairs quietly. The estate was quiet in the early morning. Most of the servants were still asleep. Ray crept through the hallways, using the knowledge from his past life to avoid the guard patrols. He knew every corridor, every blind spot, every door. He slipped into the kitchen and grabbed a loaf of bread and a small knife. Then he made his way to the servants' exit at the back of the estate. He pushed the door open and stepped out into the cold morning air. Freedom. Ray took a deep breath and disappeared into the forest beyond the estate walls. Ray walked through the forest for hours, putting distance between himself and the estate. His weak body grew tired quickly, but he pushed on. He knew exactly where he was going. Deep in this forest, there was a hidden cave that nobody discovered until years later. Inside that cave lived a pack of shadow wolves, dangerous beasts that most adventurers avoided. But to Ray, they were not a threat, they were food. With his Devour skill, every wolf he killed would make him stronger. He smiled to himself. The forest that others feared was his personal training ground. By the time he reached the cave, the sun was high in the sky. Ray crouched behind a boulder and peered inside. He could see glowing red eyes in the darkness. Shadow wolves, at least 6 of them. In his current weak state, fighting 6 at once would be suicide even for him. Ray's mind raced. He needed a plan. He remembered that shadow wolves were territorial and aggressive, but they were also easy to bait. He picked up a rock and threw it into the cave. A low growl echoed out. A single wolf emerged, snarling, separated from the pack. Ray gripped his small knife and smiled. One at a time, that was how he would survive. The wolf lunged at him, fangs bared. Ray didn't panic. Even in this small body, he had the reflexes of a legendary hero. He sidestepped the wolf and drove his knife into its neck. The beast yelped and thrashed, but Ray held the blade firm until it stopped moving. The system flashed. Shadow wolf defeated. Devour available. Ray placed his hand on the corpse and absorbed its power. Black mist flowed into him. He felt his speed increase, his senses sharpen. He gained the wolf's hunting instincts. The screen updated. Level 3 reached. Skill gained. Shadow step. Ray's eyes lit up. He could now move through shadows like the wolves did. One by one, Ray baited the wolves out of the cave and killed them. Each kill made him faster, stronger, deadlier. By the time the 6th wolf fell, Ray was a completely different person. His body still looked thin, but it now moved with terrifying grace. His mana veins pulsed with power. He had reached level 8. Ray stood at the mouth of the cave, breathing steadily, surrounded by the bodies of the beasts that once terrified grown adventurers. He looked at his hands and clenched them into fists. This was only the beginning. The Devour skill made him grow faster than anyone in history. Ray entered the cave to rest. Deep inside, he found something he remembered from his past life, a hidden chamber behind a crumbling wall. He pushed through the stones and found an old chest covered in dust. He opened it. Inside lay a glowing blue dagger and a tattered spellbook. Ray's heart raced. This was the Frostfang dagger, a rare magic weapon and a beginner spellbook of ice magic. In his first life, he found these items far too late after years of struggling. Now he had them on his first day of freedom. Ray picked up the dagger and felt the cold power surging through it. He smiled. The world was handing him its secrets. Ray spent the next several days in the forest, training relentlessly. He hunted monsters during the day and read the ice spellbook at night. His Devour skill let him absorb the power of every creature he killed, while the system recorded his growth. He learned to cast frost spells, freezing his enemies solid before finishing them off. His body grew stronger and his control over mana deepened. Within a week, Ray had reached level 15. The starving slave boy was gone. In his place stood a young hunter with the mind of a legend and the power to match. But Ray knew the forest could only take him so far. He needed bigger challenges. He remembered that the nearest city, Aldenberg, held a hunter's guild. In this world, hunters earned money and reputation by clearing dungeons and slaying monsters. Strong hunters became nobles. The strongest became legends. In his past life, Ray joined a guild far too late and was treated like trash because of his slave origins. This time, he would walk in as a powerful hunter from the start. Ray sheathed his Frostfang dagger and headed toward the city. He needed money, gear, and information. And the guild was the perfect place to begin his rise. Ray arrived at Aldenberg by nightfall. The city was massive, surrounded by tall stone walls and bustling with merchants, adventurers, and travelers. Ray pulled his hood low to hide his face. He still wore the rags of a slave and his iron collar marks were visible on his neck. If anyone recognized him as an escaped slave, he would be hunted down. He needed to change his appearance and earn some money fast. Ray slipped into the city through the main gate, blending into the crowd. He remembered the layout perfectly. He knew exactly where to go. His first stop was a pawnshop in the lower district. Ray walked in and placed several monster cores on the counter, items he had harvested from the beasts he killed in the forest. The shopkeeper, an old man with a sharp eye, examined them carefully. He raised an eyebrow. He said, "These are high-quality cores, boy." "Where did you get them?" Ray simply said. "I hunted them." The old man looked at his thin frame and worn clothes and chuckled in disbelief, but he didn't argue. He paid Ray a fair sum of gold. Ray now had enough money to buy clothes, food, and a room for the night. The first step of his rise was complete. Ray used the money to buy a simple but sturdy set of hunter's clothes, a cloak to hide his face, and a proper meal, the first real food he had eaten in this life. He rented a small room at an inn and finally rested. As he lay on the bed, the system screen appeared again. Daily quest available. Register at the Hunter's Guild. Ray raised an eyebrow. The system was guiding him toward the guild. He smiled faintly. That was exactly where he planned to go. He closed his eyes and slept, his mind already racing with plans for the days ahead. Tomorrow his name would begin to spread. The next morning, Ray walked into the Aldenberg Hunters Guild. The building was huge and filled with hunters of all kinds, warriors in heavy armor, mages in flowing robes, archers with quivers full of arrows. The air buzzed with conversation and the clinking of weapons. Many hunters glanced at Ray, sized him up, and dismissed him. He looked young and unremarkable, a boy in a plain cloak. Nobody knew the monster that hid beneath the hood. Ray walked to the registration desk where a young woman sat, organizing papers. She looked up and smiled politely. She said, "Welcome to the Hunters Guild. Are you here to register?" Ray nodded. She handed him a crystal orb. She explained, "Place your hand on the orb. It will measure your mana and assign you a rank from F at the bottom to S at the top." Ray placed his hand on the orb. He knew his power was far beyond a beginner's, but he didn't want to reveal his full strength yet. He focused, carefully suppressing most of his mana, letting only a small portion flow into the orb. The crystal glowed a soft green. The woman looked at the result. She said, "E rank, not bad for someone your age. Most beginners start at F." Ray nodded calmly. Hiding his strength was the smart move. The woman handed him a bronze identification card. She said, "This card proves you are a registered hunter. You can accept quests from the board over there. As you complete quests and grow stronger, your rank will increase. Good luck." Ray took the card and thanked her. He walked over to the quest board and scanned the listings. Most of the E-rank quests were simple tasks, clearing low-level monsters or gathering herbs, but one quest caught his eye. A nearby village was being terrorized by a pack of goblins led by a goblin chief. The reward was generous. Ray smiled. Goblins were nothing to him, easy gold and more power to devour. Ray accepted the quest and left the city, heading toward the village. As he walked, he noticed something. A group of 3 hunters was following the same path, talking loudly. He recognized their type immediately, arrogant low-rankers who thought they were stronger than they were. The leader was a tall boy with a sword on his back, around 18 years old. He noticed Ray and sneered. He said, "Hey kid, are you taking the goblin quest too? You should turn back. Goblins will tear a scrawny brat like you apart." His friends laughed. Ray ignored them and kept walking. He had no time for fools. The tall boy didn't like being ignored. He stepped in front of Ray, blocking his path. He said, "I'm talking to you, brat. This quest is ours. Find another one or I'll teach you some manners." Ray looked up at him with cold eyes. He said calmly, "The quest board doesn't belong to you. Move." The boy's face twisted with anger. He grabbed the hilt of his sword, but before he could draw it, Ray's hand shot out and gripped his wrist. The boy gasped. The grip was like iron, far stronger than any E-rank should be. He tried to pull away, but he couldn't move. Ray stared into his eyes and said quietly, "Don't make me repeat myself." Then he let go and walked past them. The three hunters stood frozen, stunned by the strength of the small boy. Ray reached the village by midday. The villagers were terrified, hiding in their homes. The goblins had been raiding their farms, stealing food, and attacking anyone who stepped outside. An elderly village chief approached Ray cautiously and explained the situation. He said, "The goblins have a nest in the hills to the east. Their chief is huge and vicious. Please, hunter, save our village." Ray nodded. He said, "Consider it done." The chief looked at his young face with worry, unsure if this boy could really handle the threat. But Ray was already walking toward the hills, his frostfang dagger ready at his side. Ray found the goblin nest in a rocky cave in the hills. He could hear the screeching of dozens of goblins inside. A normal E-rank hunter would need a full team to clear a nest this size, but Ray was no normal hunter. He stepped into the cave and the goblins immediately noticed him. They charged, screaming and waving crude weapons. Ray raised his hand and cast an ice spell. A wave of frost erupted from his palm, freezing the front line of goblins solid. He dashed forward with shadow step, moving like a blur, and shattered the frozen goblins with his dagger. The system flashed with kill notifications, one after another. The goblins kept coming, but Ray cut through them effortlessly. He froze them, shattered them, and devoured their power. With each kill, he grew slightly stronger. His movements were precise and merciless. Within minutes, the cave floor was littered with goblin corpses. Then a deep roar echoed from the back of the cave. The goblin chief emerged, a massive creature twice the size of a normal goblin wielding a huge iron club. It glared at Ray with bloodshot eyes and charged, swinging its club with enough force to crush stone. Ray's eyes narrowed. This was the real fight. The chief swung its club down. Ray dodged to the side with shadow step and the club smashed into the ground where he had been standing, sending rocks flying. Ray cast a frost spell at the chief's legs, slowing it down. The chief roared in frustration and swung again, but Ray was already moving. He darted between the creature's legs, slashing at its tendons with his dagger. The chief stumbled. Ray climbed up its massive back and drove the frostfang dagger deep into the base of its skull. The chief let out a final roar and collapsed. The system flashed. Goblin chief defeated, Devour available. Ray absorbed the chief's power. A surge of strength flowed into him and the screen updated. Level 18 reached, strength significantly increased. Ray exhaled and looked around the cave full of dead goblins. The quest was complete and he had grown stronger in the process. He searched the chief's body and found a small pouch of gold and a glowing red gem, a fire core, a rare and valuable item. Ray pocketed it. He walked out of the cave and returned to the village where the chief and villagers waited anxiously. When they saw him emerge unharmed, their faces lit up with relief and amazement. The village chief rushed forward. He asked, "Is it done? Are the goblins gone?" Ray nodded. He said, "The chief and the entire nest are dead. Your village is safe now." The villagers erupted in cheers. The chief thanked Ray over and over, pressing the reward gold into his hands and offering him food and shelter. Ray accepted the gold but politely declined the rest. He had what he needed. As he prepared to leave, the chief looked at him with awe and said, "You are no ordinary hunter, are you?" Ray simply smiled faintly and walked away. The legend of the mysterious young hunter had begun. Ray returned to Aldenberg and reported the completed quest at the guild. The receptionist was shocked when she learned that he had cleared the entire goblin nest alone. She said, "You did this by yourself at E-rank?" Ray nodded calmly. Word spread quickly through the guild. Hunters began to whisper about the young boy who cleared a goblin nest solo. Some were impressed, others were jealous. Ray ignored them all. He collected his reward and immediately accepted another quest. He had no time to waste basking in attention. Every day he needed to grow stronger. The catastrophe of his past life was still coming, and he intended to be ready this time. Over the next few weeks, Ray took on quest after quest, each one more dangerous than the last. He cleared dungeons, slayed monsters, and devoured their power. His rank climbed steadily from E to D, then from D to C. His reputation grew alongside his strength. Hunters across the city began to know his name. They called him the Frost Hunter for the ice magic he wielded and the cold, merciless way he fought. But nobody knew his true power. Ray always held back, never revealing the full extent of his abilities. He was building toward something far greater than guild rankings. One evening, after completing a difficult dungeon, Ray sat alone in his room at the inn, studying a map of the continent. His mind drifted to the betrayals of his past life. He remembered the king who burned him. He remembered the party members who laughed as he died. Most of them were still children now, scattered across the kingdom, unaware of the futures they once had. Ray's eyes hardened. He would find them. Some he would destroy before they could rise. Others he would let grow just so he could crush them at their peak. But first, there was one person he needed to deal with, the Valmont family that had enslaved him. Ray had grown strong enough now. He was C-rank in the eyes of the guild, but his true power was far beyond that. The Valmont estate with its guards and knight captain no longer frightened him. In fact, he was looking forward to the reunion. He remembered every beating, every cruel word, every drop of blood they took from him. The young master Cedric was already dead by his hands. Now it was time for the rest of the family to face the consequences. Ray packed his gear, sheathed his frostfang dagger, and left the inn. The estate was a half-day's journey away. He would arrive by nightfall. As Ray traveled, the system screen appeared with a new notification. Hidden quest unlocked, reclaim your freedom, destroy the Valmont family, reward class advancement. Ray's eyes widened slightly. Class advancement. His Demon King's successor class would evolve. This was exactly the boost he needed. He smiled coldly. The system was rewarding him for the very revenge he already planned to take. Everything was aligning perfectly. He picked up his pace, the cold fire of vengeance burning in his chest. The Valmont family had no idea what was coming for them. Ray reached the Valmont estate as the sun set, painting the sky red. He stood before the tall iron gates, looking at the place where he had suffered for so long. The estate was just as he remembered, grand and cruel. Guards patrolled the walls and lights glowed in the windows. In his past life, this place was his prison. Tonight, it would become a graveyard. Ray pulled his hood low and approached the gate. Two guards stepped forward, blocking his path. One of them said, "Halt, state your business. The Valmont estate does not welcome strangers at this hour." Ray looked at them and said quietly, "I'm not a stranger, I used to live here." The guards exchanged confused glances. Before they could respond, Ray raised his hand and cast a frost spell. A wave of ice surged forward, freezing both guards solid in an instant. Ray walked past them and placed his hand on the frozen statues. He devoured their power and the system flashed. He pushed open the iron gate and stepped into the estate grounds. Alarms began to ring as more guards noticed the intrusion. Within moments, a dozen armed men surrounded Ray, weapons drawn. Ray stood calmly in the center, completely unafraid. The guards charged. Ray moved like a storm of ice and shadow. He froze some, shattered others, and cut through the rest with his dagger. His movements were so fast that the guards could barely see him. One by one they fell. The Devour skill flooded him with power as he absorbed each fallen enemy. By the time the last guard collapsed, Ray hadn't even broken a sweat. He stood in the courtyard surrounded by the bodies of the men who once helped imprison him. He looked up at the main mansion where the Valmont family hid. He whispered, "I'm home." Then he walked toward the doors. Suddenly, the mansion doors burst open, and a tall man in heavy armor stepped out holding a massive greatsword. It was the knight captain of the Valmont family, the strongest warrior in the estate. In Ray's past life, this man was a terrifying figure, an A-rank knight who could cut down dozens of enemies alone. The captain glared at Ray and said, "So the little intruder killed my men, you'll pay for that with your life, boy." He raised his greatsword and a powerful aura erupted around him. Ray felt the pressure of the man's strength. He smiled. Finally, a real opponent. The captain charged with incredible speed, swinging his greatsword in a deadly arc. Ray raised his dagger to block, but the force of the blow sent him sliding back across the courtyard. The captain was strong, far stronger than the guards. Ray's arms tingled from the impact. He realized he couldn't win this fight with brute force alone. He needed to use his speed and his magic together. Ray activated Shadow Step and vanished, reappearing behind the captain. He slashed at the man's back, but the captain's armor was too thick. The blade barely scratched it. The captain spun around and swung again, forcing Ray to dodge. The two clashed again and again. The captain's strength was overwhelming, but Ray's speed and ice magic kept him alive. Ray froze the ground beneath the captain's feet, causing him to slip. He cast frost spells to slow the man's movements. Slowly, the battle began to turn. The captain grew frustrated, swinging wildly, while Ray remained calm and precise. Ray waited for the perfect moment. When the captain raised his greatsword for a powerful overhead strike, Ray dashed in close, slipped past his guard, and drove the frostfang dagger into the gap in his armor, straight into his heart. The captain froze, his eyes wide. Then he collapsed. The system flashed brightly. A rank knight defeated, Devour available. Ray placed his hand on the captain's body and absorbed his power. This time the surge was massive. The captain's strength, his battle experience, his sword techniques, all of it flowed into Ray. The screen erupted with notifications. Level 25 reached. Skill gained, greatsword mastery, strength dramatically increased. Ray felt his body overflowing with new power. The defeat of the strongest warrior in the estate had given him a tremendous boost. He stood up, more powerful than ever, and turned toward the mansion doors. Now nothing stood between him and the Valmont family. Ray walked into the mansion. The halls were silent and dim. He moved through them with purpose, his footsteps echoing. He could hear panicked voices coming from the upper floors. The Valmont family knew their guards and Knight Captain had fallen. They knew the intruder was coming for them. Ray climbed the grand staircase and followed the voices to a large study at the end of the hall. He pushed the door open. Inside, Lord Valmont, the head of the family, stood with his wife and remaining servants, all of them trembling with fear. Lord Valmont's face was pale. He stared at Ray, trying to understand who this powerful intruder was. Lord Valmont said, "Who are you? Why are you doing this? I'll give you gold, anything you want, just spare us." Ray slowly pulled back his hood, revealing his face. Lord Valmont squinted, confused. He didn't recognize the strong young hunter before him. Ray said quietly, "You don't remember me. Of course you don't. I was just a slave to you. A boy you beat and starved, a boy your son tortured for fun." Lord Valmont's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. He stammered, "The slave boy? Impossible. You were nothing. How could you become this strong?" Ray took a step forward, his eyes cold as ice. He said, "I lived an entire life and came back, and now it's time to settle the debt." Lord Valmont panicked. He ordered his remaining servants to attack, but they were no match for Ray. He cut through them with ease. Lord Valmont tried to run, but Ray was faster. He cornered the man against the wall. Lord Valmont fell to his knees, begging for his life, the same way Ray had once begged for mercy in this very estate. But Ray felt no pity. He remembered all the times his own pleas were ignored. He raised his dagger and ended the cruel lord's life. The system flashed. The hidden quest was complete. A new message appeared. Quest complete, class advancing, Demon King's successor evolving. A surge of power exploded through Ray's body. His class was evolving. Dark energy swirled around him as the system upgraded his abilities. The screen displayed the new class name. Class Advanced, New Class, Demon Sovereign. Ray felt an enormous amount of power flooding into him. His mana doubled. His strength surged. New skills appeared in his status window. He had taken a massive leap forward. The starving slave boy was now something far greater, a demon sovereign with the memories of a legendary hero. Ray looked at his hands, feeling the incredible power coursing through him, and a satisfied smile crossed his face. Ray walked out of the Valmont estate, leaving the cruel family and their reign of terror behind forever. The place that once imprisoned him was now empty and silent. As he stepped through the broken gates into the night, Ray took a deep breath of fresh, free air. The first chapter of his revenge was complete, but it was only the beginning. There were still many enemies from his past life waiting in the world, the corrupt king, the betraying party members, and the dark forces that would one day threaten everything. Ray clenched his fists. He had the power, the knowledge, and the system on his side. This time the world would tremble before him. Ray returned to Aldenberg, but he knew his time in the small city was coming to an end. He had outgrown it. His true goals lay in the capital, where the king ruled and the most powerful hunters gathered. To reach his enemies, he needed to rise to the very top of the hunter rankings. He needed to become an S-rank hunter, a name known across the entire continent. Only then could he challenge the king who had burned him alive. Ray made his decision. He would travel to the capital and join the ranks of the elite. The path ahead was dangerous, but Ray had never felt more ready. Before leaving, Ray returned to the guild one last time to advance his rank officially. He had been holding back his true power, but now it was time to show a little more. He requested a rank evaluation. The guild master himself, a powerful B-rank hunter, oversaw the test. Ray demonstrated his ice magic and combat skills, careful not to reveal his full strength as a demon sovereign. Even so, the guild master was stunned by his power. He immediately promoted Ray to A rank, the highest rank he could grant. The guild master said, "Your talent is extraordinary, boy. In the capital you could become a legend. Go and make a name for yourself." Ray nodded and thanked him. As Ray walked toward the city gates, ready to begin his journey to the capital, the system screen appeared once more. New region unlocked, the royal capital. Warning, powerful enemies detected. Main questline beginning. Ray read the words and smiled. The system was guiding him exactly where he wanted to go. The capital held his greatest enemies and his greatest challenges. It was where his first life ended in flames and where his second life would truly begin.